Do the Mavericks need to surround Luka Doncic with another co-star or continue to build this team with high-level role players? This is Inside the Mavs right here on Kevin Gray Sports. My name is Kevin Gray. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all of these Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. And you can catch you on your home with the Dallas Cowboys and Texas Rangers, 105.3 The Fan. Also Mavericks Insider, of course, for 105.3 Fan. After the Dallas Mavericks were dismissed by the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals in 5 games, there are still questions to be answered about how this team will go about building itself throughout the rest of this summer and then going into next season, and how they will look to build on their Western Conference Finals appearance for the first time since 2011. Obviously, finding a rim protector who can help out on the offensive and defensive glass is going to be extremely important. Bringing back Jalen Brunson into the fold and how much more he's going to get paid based off the terrific season that he had, especially in the playoffs, culminating with a 41-point game in these playoffs and becoming a very integral part of what the Mavericks will need to do in the future to try and win a second championship in franchise history. And obviously, the playoffs, allowing Luka Doncic, who came back after dealing with the calf injury at the very end of the season, being able to help come into the Utah series, win that series there. Then obviously the destruction of the Phoenix Suns in Game 7 on the road in the Western Conference semifinals, and then ultimately falling to the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. The future is bright for this team. The question now being, how much brighter can it get based on the roster that they're trying to build to keep this core not only together, but to add on top of it going into next year and beyond? Because make no mistake about it, teams in the Western Conference are going to be improving going into 2022. The Clippers presumably will be much more healthy. The Denver Nuggets with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. You're thinking the Lakers will come back and be much better with new head coach Darvin Ham and whatever they decide to do with Russell Westbrook. Obviously, you have teams that have established themselves when it comes to the Suns, the Grizzlies, among other teams in the Western Conference. What will the Utah Jazz do with their situation with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert? So you could see how things could be much different going into next year based on what happened this past year in the NBA and what could happen in free agency this summer, where the free agency class isn't necessarily great. But when you start looking at the Mavericks and what they need to add, whether it be a center to be able to help provide rim protection and rebounding, bringing back Jalen Brunson into the fold so that he's around for the next 3 to 4 years, the question is, how do you maximize Luka Doncic's championship window that has now been open based on the Western Conference Finals appearance that they made this year, and how much better they can get going into the future? Because now you can look at this in one of two ways. Do you surround Luka Doncic with high-level role players that will continue to improve and get better so that he can accentuate his own strengths as a player as he continues to grow? Or do you eventually find a second co-star that can help him win an NBA championship? Now, it's a very interesting dilemma, a positive dilemma, if you will, because of how ahead of schedule this team and this franchise is based on the fact that you have a 3-time first-team All-NBA selection and Luka Doncic running your team and your franchise going forward for hopefully the next decade. So do you decide to go down the road of bringing in high-level role players to continue to help this team, whether it be 3-and-D guys who are athletic, that can shoot the basketball, can get their own bucket, can get into the lane, and do all those kinds of things that can help accentuate the strengths of a Luka Doncic? Or do you find yourself, if you're Nico Harrison, the general manager of this team, Jason Kidd, the head coach, and this front office, trying to find a second co-star that can take some of the pressure off of Luka Doncic, especially when it comes to the scoring load and usage rate that we've come accustomed to seeing from Luka Doncic over the past few seasons? Now, there really isn't a clear path right now for this team to find said co-star. This team is going to be in the luxury tax, obviously, once they bring back Jalen Brunson significantly into the luxury tax, a team that's going to be hard capped and really not going to be able to sign anybody in free agency. Even with the mid-level exception that they have and the trade exception that they have of nearly $11 million from the Josh Richardson deal, doesn't allow you necessarily to do much in the way of drastically improving this roster. Though they may look to continue to go down the same road as if they were a college basketball team, if you will, continuing to grow and gel together so that the success and that togetherness and that continuity will eventually culminate in winning a championship of some sort. But for the Mavericks, I don't necessarily want Luka Doncic to have to win a championship the way that Dirk Nowitzki won his, really becoming the sole superstar on a team that drove the train that helped the Dallas Mavericks win their only championship in franchise history 11 years ago yesterday. So the idea being, if you're Luka Doncic, if you're this franchise, what's the path to getting said co-star? Not necessarily one this summer, and really you don't necessarily see much in the way of free agency or really in trade anyway, because the free agency class of 2023 is going to be much more loaded with a lot more stars and maybe more opportunities to bring in said co-star. What Bradley Beal decides to do, among others, when it comes to signing contract extensions, lucrative contract extensions with their current teams, will be obviously something that you see going forward as well. But for me, I want to see a second co-star be added to this team. You say, Kevin, maybe Jalen Brunson develops into that all-star type of player, much like how Chris Middleton developed into an all-star player with the Milwaukee Bucks that helped a guy like Giannis win a championship. Drew Holiday, a guy, first-team All-NBA defensive performer at one time in his career, still one of the best defensive guards in the NBA, also helping Giannis to win an NBA championship. But what we've seen over the last several years is this. You can't simply win necessarily with just one superstar on your team. It has to be at least two stars, if you will. Even when you think about the Cleveland Cavaliers, the early iterations of LeBron James and Kyrie Irving winning a championship in 2016, obviously what you've seen from the Golden State Warriors with Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant winning championships together. Obviously with Kawhi Leonard, yes, there was different circumstances that allowed him to win a championship, but he still had an all-star level player alongside him in Kyle Lowry in Toronto. So no matter what examples you try to use, you're going to have to get a second co-star in order to win an NBA championship. And more importantly, I want that for Luka Doncic. He deserves to have someone take the load off of him from all the scoring and the passing and everything that he does to drive the train that is the Dallas Mavericks. And if you're Nico Harrison, Mark Cuban, and this front office and this team, you don't want to have all of that pressure on this young kid, although he can handle it and has proven to show that he can handle it, to have to shoulder all that load throughout the entirety of his career. It's not fair to him. It's not fair to the organization. And more importantly, it doesn't give you the best chance to win an NBA championship. While, yes, having Luka Doncic continue to grow and improve as a player who will eventually be an MVP in this league and continue to rack up first-team All-NBA selections may be enough with high-level role players to win an NBA championship, but it shouldn't be asked of him to have to carry the franchise in said manner, much like his predecessor did in Dirk Nowitzki. He shouldn't have to do that. He's too good, he's too talented, and right now too young to have to shoulder all that load, especially knowing how much basketball he's going to continue to play over the next several years. Just to look at this summer, for example. He's going to be playing a ton of basketball all the way through September with Eurobasket. My man's going to be playing constantly throughout the course of his career. He's already got a lot of wear and tear on his body, as it is basically playing basketball for the last 2 straight years. So this organization, to me, will have to put itself in a good position to be able to help its young superstar out. And whether that be Jalen Brunson developing into an all-star player that could eventually be a guy that you see as that quote-unquote second co-star alongside Luka Doncic, or they decide to go down the road of eventually finding that co-star to go alongside Luka Doncic, they need to find one. And to ensure that that star can not only take the load off of Luka Doncic at times from a scoring standpoint, but be able to put teams in positions to make decisions on how they defend Luka Doncic and said co-star on the offensive end. Because all that does is make everyone else around that guy and Luka Doncic that much better. You say, Kevin, they might have to give up a lot in order to get said co-star. And I get that. Whether it be Dorian Finney-Smith, Reggie Bullock, whomever you want to say, Tim Hardaway Jr., Spencer Dinwiddie, the cost is going to be high, obviously, in order to get said co-star. But at the same time, it would be well worth it, especially if it allows you to continue to compete in the Western Conference, where there appears to be an arms race about to ensue in the Western Conference, knowing how talented all of these teams are in the Western Conference. It's going to be very difficult to win consistently year after year and make deep run after deep run, knowing the amount of talent in the West. You're going to have to find yourself improving your team, and the best way that you could do that, in my mind, not necessarily this summer, but definitely in 2023 and beyond, give that young man Luka Doncic someone who can support him and take some of that load off of him, because he's going to be already asking to do a whole lot for this franchise. And if you can find a way, that to me is the best way to do it. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Again, be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. It's been another episode of Inside the Mavs right here on Kevin Gray Sports. I'll talk to you later. Peace.